Evening. I'd like to call to order the Scotch Plains County Board of Education, December 19th, 2019, open public meeting. Mrs. Saradaki, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Bowers, here. Ms. Boroff, here. Mrs. Brody, here. Mrs. Mitchell, here. Mrs. Suriani, here. Mrs. Williams, here. Mr. Murray, here. Dr. Kulikowski.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you, Mrs. Saradaki. Will you please join me in the salute to the flag? Ready? Begin. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Mass, I'd like to introduce you to come up to talk about Park Middle School. Lovely presentation to have this evening.
Yes, I'd like to welcome the Blue Notes to the stage. While we were in executive session, they were warming up, and it just reminds me that beautiful music doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of hard work. I would also like to point out that they do not have music in their hands. So they have practiced enough that the music is in their heart, which also speaks to a deep commitment for making the arts alive and beautiful here in Scotch Plains County. I'd like to welcome our director, Jen Jenkins.
Please rise for the singing of the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets right away, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Alessandra Giovanella, our student conductor, one of our student conductors. We also have Olivia Gomez, who is our assistant student conductor this year. We have our section leaders. Can you raise your hand, section leaders? We have David Gomez, yes, a brother and sister. It's twins. We have Bella Capati, Lauren Cunningham, and Abby Griffiths. Those are our section leaders to help lead the groups. Our next song is Festive Noel.
Celebrate with joyful voice and gladly sing Noel. Let our people now rejoice and gladly sing Noel. Noel,
Just checking.
It's the last known one. Our next song is called Bitty Bong, which is just a compilation of nonsense syllables. Thank you.
Bitty bum, bitty, bitty, bitty bum, bitty bum, bitty, bitty, bitty bum. Bitty bum, bitty, bitty, bitty bum, bitty bum, bitty, bitty, bitty bum. Bitty bum, bitty, bitty bum, bitty, 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 bitty bum. Holiday is here, it's a happy time of year. Bitty bum, bitty, bitty, bitty bum. Once upon a time, sung melody and rhyme. Bitty bum, bitty, bitty, bitty bum. Candles alight and their flame is so bright, reflected in little church chimes. Come and dance to the tune of the holiday moon. Bitty bum, bitty, bitty, bitty bum. Bum, bitty bum, bitty, bitty, bitty bum. Bitty bum, bitty, 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 bitty bum. Bum, bitty bum, bitty, bitty, bitty bum. Bum, bitty, 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 bitty bum. Holiday is here, it's a happy time of year. Bitty bum, bitty, bitty, bitty bum. Once upon a time, sung a melody and rhyme. Bitty bum, bitty, bitty, bitty bum. Candles alight and their flame is so bright, reflected in the church chimes. Come and dance to the tune, meet the holiday mood. Bitty bum, bitty, bitty, bitty bum. Bitty, bitty, bitty bum. Bitty bum, bitty, bitty, bitty bum. Bitty bum, bum, bum. Bitty bum, bitty, bitty, bitty bum. Bitty bum, bitty, 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 bitty bum. Bitty, 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 bitty bum.
Our next song really needs no introduction. We'll see if you know this tune.
Summer bells, sweet summer bells, all seem to say, throw cares away. Christmas is here, bringing the cheer to young and old, meek and the bold. Ding, 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 dong, that is the song. Ding, ding, will ring, all merrily. One seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere, filling the air. Oh, how they come praising the song, high until it's God in their tail. Giving their ring while people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here. Ding, 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 dong, that is the song. From everywhere, filling the air. Oh, how they come praising the song, loud until it's hard to hear. Give me the ring while people sing songs of good cheer. Christmas is here. Ding-ding-ding, that is the song. Ding-ding-ding, that is the song. Ding-ding-ding, send on without end, dear joyful tone to everyone. Ding-ding-ding, send on without end, dear joyful tone to everyone. Ding dong, ding dong.
Their next song is called Light. It was written about Hanukkah, and it's written by some of you, if you're from the early 90s, Lisa Loeb. If anybody remembers Lisa Loeb, yeah, something like that. Yes. So she wrote this song called Light. And before we are finished with our last song, I apologize for my voice, sinus infection. I'm okay. We have Sarah Gorman, who is actually a Park alumnus, as well as now a Scotch Plains Fanwood High School alumnus. She graduated in June. So she came back from Shenandoah University to come play our concert on Tuesday and also to play for you this evening. So thank you to Sarah. And our last song, the Blue Notes will be singing from Park Middle School, is Blizzard. Where's Dr. Mass? Can I put that order in again for January 2nd and 3rd, snow days? No. She yelled at me after the concert. So this is Blizzard. I hope everyone has a wonderful, happy holiday season and a wonderful new year. And congratulations to all of the sports teams this evening for all of their accomplishments as well. Thank you.
share their work, put us in the seasonal mood, and as an honor to all of the sports teams that we will now be recognizing, I'd like to invite Mr. Ryan Miller up to the mic. He will be doing the next solo.
There's only one singer in my family. She's at home rehearsing for her school play, and it's definitely not. So thank you so much for coming out this evening. It is an honor to honor our sports teams. But one of the greatest things that I think about with regarding these three teams that are here is each one of them had to overcome something to then get to the championship that they have. And it's easy to say that you know who you are when you go through a little bit of adversity, and it's really easy to talk about it, but it's not so easy to do it. It's not so easy to have to score a goal because a penalty got called and you've got one shot, one last second to get it done, you get that tie to get to the end, you get yourselves in a position to win. It's not easy to end a streak that has been going on for 9 years, and pick up and then do something no one's ever done in this school's history before. And it's not easy to drop a game against a team you should have won and then rattle off 7 wins and win a division for the first time in the school history, and your program's only 3 years old in the varsity. These young men and women that are out here tonight overcame adversity, came through the end of it, and came out champions. And congratulations for doing that. Because again, it's easy to say it, but it's not easy to do it. And it's a credit to you, your parents, and your coaches. So congratulations to all the athletes that are out here tonight. It is my honor to introduce our first team that we're going to bring up. They are coached by Coach Matt Giannacio.
All right, I'd like to thank everybody first for coming out tonight to support us, the varsity girls soccer team, the varsity field hockey team, that awesome choir that was just up there. I just wanted to thank the administration here at Scotch Plains, our board members, Dr. Mass, Mr. Miller, and Mr. Heisey, for putting us in a good spot athletically to be successful each and every year. These guys standing up here, this was a great year for me as I transitioned from the freshman coach the past 3 years to in my JV position this year. There was only 2 players that are standing up here right now that I hadn't coached before. And I had a lot of these guys with me the previous year, so it was an easy transition for us, and they know what I expect and they know what to expect out of me and what traditionally the program expects out of all of our soccer players. There's a lot of pressure on these guys this year, considering that last year's JV team also won the county tournament. This year, the final game against Westfield at Johnson was probably one of the most exciting soccer games I had ever seen in my life. I know it's my team and these guys, but we actually tied the game with no time on the clock, which was pretty impressive. These guys, it's just a testament to them. Whether things were going really good or things were going really bad, this team never stopped fighting. And that's something that, you know, you can't really teach. And it all comes from within. And these guys just keep impressing year in and year out. And the future is bright here, as far as soccer is concerned, in my opinion. We have a lot of players. We have a lot of players that know how to play at a certain level. There's a lot of expectations out of these guys, and for the most part, they answer the bell year in and year out. I couldn't be more proud to stand next to a bunch of guys that I wouldn't trade anything to coach one more game for. They give everything to me. They give everything to their school and to each other. And this group of boys standing in front of you right now is probably one of the finest soccer teams I have ever coached. Just the way they gelled from the beginning to the end. We faced adversity. We had a lull in a week or two. And the way we bounced back was extremely impressive on their part. So, boys, thank you. I don't know what to say. I'm just gonna. It's a season that I never wanted to end. Let's put it that way. Very proud of you guys. You deserve every ounce of credit. And parents, you're our biggest fans. You were there for every game. I thank you the most because you just created an amazing group of young men that I can't wait to see what they do next in the future. So thank you.
2019-2020 Scotch Plains High School JV boys soccer team completed the 2019 season with a record of 11-6-4. And whereas the 2019-2020 Scotch Plains High School JV boys soccer team earned the first seed in the Union County Interscholastic Athletic Conference tournament, defeating Ordinary Prep and Summit before heading to the finals of Arthur L. Johnson against second seeded Westfield. And whereas in the dramatic contest, the 2019-2020 Scotch Plains High School JV boys soccer team tied the game 1-1 with seconds remaining following a penalty. After two golden goal 10-minute overtime periods, the contest ended in a 1-1 draw, earning the Scotch Plains High School JV boys soccer team the Cook County Championship. And whereas the 2019-2020 Scotch Plains High School JV boys soccer team was led by Coach Matthew Genesio, who exhibited outstanding leadership, commitment, and sportsmanship in his role as a coach and mentor. Now therefore be it resolved that the Scotch Plains Board of Education recognizes and congratulates 2019-2020 Scotch Plains High School JV boys soccer team, Coach Genesio, for their outstanding achievements and wish them continued success in all future endeavors.
We brought field hockey back 4 years ago. Number one, when you have a new program, it's like you go JV for 2 years and then you move forward to varsity. And because of some of the uniqueness that we have in our numbers, we went a year early. And in going that year early, it took a little bit of bumps and some ups and downs, but kind of came out the end this year because we turned around and won the Blue Division, which is something that hasn't been done here. We were able to overcome teams from not only Union County, but also Essex County to become the Blue Division champions. And the leadership of that program, we're going to bring up now Coach Alexander Nadig and Coach Sarah Weber.
So I just wanted to thank Mr. Miller, Dr. Heisey, Dr. Mass, the Board of Ed for having us tonight. And thank you to my assistant coach too for being here. And big congratulations to boys JV soccer and girls varsity soccer. As Mr. Miller said, we're still kind of the new kids on the block. We've only been a varsity program for 3 years now. And at the end of each season, I always sit down with Mr. Miller and kind of talk about my plans for next year. And last year I said to him, you know what? I think we're going to win the Blue Division next year. And we both kind of laughed, and I was like, no, I'm serious. I think we can do it. I knew these girls had a lot of potential. We only lost a few seniors the year before, and this year we're only losing 2 seniors. They worked hard all winter, all spring, all summer. We came in the season, and we had a little bit of a rough start. We lost 1 game to Union, and then we got completely destroyed by Columbia 6-1. And then it came to our Westfield game. And as everyone in this room knows, Westfield is a huge town rival and a huge field hockey rival of ours. Going from 6th grade all the way until now, our goal has always been, they want to beat Westfield. When we played in middle school, we wanted to beat Westfield. JV, we wanted to beat Westfield. Varsity, we wanted to beat Westfield. And at that game, that Saturday morning, there was just something different about this group. And I said it to her, I said, something is just different about these girls. They are like fired up, ready to go. It was our first Saturday game of the season, and they went out there and I think played the best field hockey game I've ever seen them play. And not only did they beat Westfield, but they shut them out 2-0 in the first week of their season. And ever since that game, they just knew that, you know, this is something we could do. We could go out this year and be a good field hockey team and make a statement. And then we came back and we played Columbia a second time, the team that beat us 6-1. And again, something was just different about them that day. And they took Columbia into overtime. It was pouring rain, freezing, and we ended up beating Columbia 2-1 in overtime. And every game, every practice, they just worked harder and harder and harder. And not only did they work harder, but you know, most of these girls up here have only played field hockey about 3 or 4 years. And they're beating girls that have been playing field hockey since they've been this big. So they knew the challenge ahead of them and they knew the goals that they had to set, and they did it. And one thing that I really truly love about this group of girls is their ability to work together. At every practice they laughed and they had fun and they grew to love the game of field hockey. And I said to her, I said, at the end of the day, my goal is to have them love field hockey. Field hockey is not an easy sport. It's not a sport that you play every day. It's not a sport that's played in PE classes. It's a very rare sport. So to not only go out there, but to learn a new sport in only 3 years and then win your division and play Montclair High School in the semifinals of the state tournament, that's astonishing. That's amazing. So you all should be very, very proud of yourselves. And I couldn't be more proud of this group of young women. They've grown into mature young field hockey players, and they're going to do great things. We're moving up a division next year, and I think we're going to have another great season. So great job, girls. I couldn't be more proud of you. And like Mr. Genesio said, I would do anything to continue to coach these girls another game. I would love to go and play Westfield again, any team again, especially my 2 seniors, Cassidy and Erin. They both have been with me for our field hockey journey. Cassidy started the field hockey team with me when she was in 8th grade on our middle school team. So I would love to have another opportunity to coach you guys again. So congratulations to the team. Again, thank you for having us. Thank you for having us.
Whereas the 2019-2020 Scotch Plains Fanwood High School Girls Varsity Hockey Team completed the 2019 season with a record of 13-7, representing the best record since the program was brought back to the high school in 2015. And whereas the 2019-2020 Scotch Plains Fanwood High School Girls Varsity Field Hockey Team defeated rival Westfield with a score of 2-0 and had a 7-game winning streak and advanced to the quarterfinals of both Union County and the North 2 Group 4 state sectional tournaments. And whereas the 1920 Scotch Plains Fanwood High School Girls Varsity Field Hockey Team was honored to have 2 players named to the second team All County, 5 players named to first team All Division, and 3 named to the second team All Division, and 1 All Division honorable mention. And whereas the 2019-2020 Scotch Plains Fanwood High School Girls Varsity Field Hockey Team was led by Coach Alexandra Neidig and assistant coaches Virginia Weber and Sarah Weber, all of whom exhibited exceptional sportsmanship, leadership, and commitment in their roles as coaches. Now therefore be it resolved that the Scotch Plains Fanwood Board of Education recognizes and congratulates the 1920 Scotch Plains Fanwood High School Girls Varsity Field Hockey Team and their coaches for their outstanding achievements and wishes them continued success in all their future endeavors. Congratulations.
Congratulations to JV varsity field hockey team. Due in large part to the consistent dedication, efforts, and involvement of not only the coaching staff, the athletes, but also the parents, it's become an annual event to come out in December and congratulate our girls soccer program. It's with great pleasure that I introduce assistant coach Matt Tiedemann and our varsity girls soccer team. As they're coming out, with deep regret, Coach Hewitt was unable to attend due to a previously scheduled conflict. We're in very, very capable hands of Coach Tiedemann.
Good evening, everybody. I'd just like to thank you for coming out, Dr. Mast, the Board of Education, for this recognition, Dr. Heisey, Mr. Miller, and the rest of the administration at the high school for your continued support. And for these girls, it's a great honor to be up here. You guys did an amazing job this year. We had a very successful season. You guys were a dedicated, committed, hard-working group of girls all year, but I think you were a group that had fun together and enjoyed coming to soccer, practice games every day. For every low, every bump in the road you guys had, you guys picked yourself up, didn't let it hold you back, and you know, it all culminated in a North Jersey sectional final championship and making the overall Group 4 final for the first time in school history, which is something you should be proud of. I think you are proud of, and just congratulations to you girls on your accomplishments this season. Thank you.
Whereas the 2019-2020 Scotch Plains Family High School varsity girls soccer team concluded their school history-making season ranked 3rd in the final NJ.com poll and 38th in the national polls. And whereas the 2019-2020 Scotch Plains Family High School varsity girls soccer team finished with a record of 18-3-2 with impressive wins over state-ranked opponents throughout the season. And whereas the 2019-2020 Scotch Plains Family High School varsity girls soccer team overcame adversity by enduring a tough penalty kick showdown in the Union County Interscholastic Athletic Conference semifinal and a difficult official overturning winning goal against Westfield on October 10, 2019. And whereas the 2019-2020 Scotch Plains Family High School varsity girls soccer team was seeded 2nd in North 2 Group 4, the Raiders girls soccer team defeated Perth Amboy 9-0, Watchung Hills Regional 1-0, and in the sectional final a 2-0 win over perennial sectional finalist Bridgewater Raritan. The most dramatic game of the sectional tournament was the 4-0 redemption victory in the semifinal against Westfield. To add to the adversity, the North 1 and North 2 semifinal game was moved from a neutral site to the North 1 Montclair site. Undeterred, the Raiders girls soccer team fought off a talented Montclair team 2-1. The season concluded at Payne University and in the group final against Hunterdon Central. And whereas the 2019-2020 Scotch Plains Family High School varsity girls soccer team made Scotch Plains family history as the first girls soccer team to advance to the group final and are now known as the first North champions for girls soccer. And whereas the 2019-2020 Scotch Plains Family High School varsity girls soccer team was led by head coach Kevin Ewing and assistant coaches Matthew Tiedemann, Lauren Maines, and Joseph Higgins, all of whom exhibited exceptional leadership, dedication, and commitment in their role as mentors and coaches. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Scotch Plains Family Board of Education recognizes and congratulates the 2019-2020
Scotch Plains Family High School varsity girls soccer team and their coaches for their outstanding achievements and wishes them continued success in all their future endeavors.
I'd like to reconvene the Scotch Plains Family Board of Education December 19th meeting. We just came back from our celebration, our music from the Blue Notes of Park Middle School, and the full sports recognition for field hockey, girls varsity soccer, and the boys JV soccer. Prior to that, we had our executive session. At that time, we spoke about personnel agenda, the HIB report, the legal status report, and the suspension and detention report. At this time, we'll continue with the instructional updates with block scheduling update by Dr. David Heisey. Okay, Dr. Heisey, if you'd like to come to the podium, and the rest of us will move to the side.
So I'd like to provide just a little background regarding the journey we've been on, and you know what has happened up to this point, and what brings me to this podium with discussing block scheduling with you.
Dave, is the mic on?
How do I? Oh, I got you. Now it's on. Yeah, it's on now. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I got the green light. So, all right. So
You have to be close to it.
okay, and be close to it. All right. Okay, we got that. I'd like to just share a little background regarding block scheduling, and because our scheduling committee, has been investigating block scheduling for over 3 years, nearly 4 years that we've been in discussion and investigation stages, and I can tell you that block scheduling comes in many forms. There is not one type of block scheduling. There are a variety of models out there that are utilized throughout New Jersey and throughout the United States. Through our investigations, we found that the type of block schedule that would best suit Scotch Plains Fanwood High School, it's referred to as an AB block. And even schools in an AB block schedule, they will custom make the AB block for their particular school. So we visited schools in New Jersey that are utilizing an AB schedule, an AB block schedule. So I'm hoping, when I'm finished this evening, you have a better understanding of what an AB block schedule is, how it differs from a traditional schedule which we currently have. I can tell you that when we visited these schools, it involved teachers, it involved students, it involved administrators, and we also had parents on our committee. Now, I'm going back 3 years now, and so these visits have taken place. We have not visited this year, but last year and the year before, we conducted a number of school visits and involved as many stakeholders as we could on those school visits. So I'm going to provide you with some background, as I just already began, and then I would like to share with you a pilot block schedule. So we kind of did a practice block schedule, if you will, and I'd like to share that with you as far as when we did it, what it looked like, and ultimately I'm going to provide you with some feedback that we received from students and faculty regarding the pilot block schedule. And ultimately, before I leave tonight, I'd like to propose a block schedule for next year, for the 2021 school year. So basically, those are my goals for this evening. So first of all, I want to go over with you the schools that we visited over the last 3 years. These are schools, some of which are closer than others. They are A-B block schools, and they are schools that also utilize a unit lunch, which I'll explain, in a few moments. Hunterdon Central, South Brunswick, Montgomery, and Morris Knowles High Schools are all schools that we visited. Students, teachers, and administrators. We went to each school with a standard set of questions, which were generated by the scheduling committee. We brought those back. We discussed those questions, and that led us to designing the schedule that we feel will best suit Scotch Plains Fanwood High School. I opened by telling you that block scheduling comes in many forms. These are some schools that are a bit closer, that utilize a block schedule and also have a unit lunch. As I said, I'll explain momentarily. Cranford, Governor Livingston, Summit, the Westmore Central and Mendham High Schools, the sister high schools of that district. And I should mention the Union County Vocational Technical Schools also utilize block scheduling. So we're not reinventing the wheel. There are schools out there that we can learn from, and we have already done that, and we will continue to pick the brains of those schools that have utilized a block schedule, in some cases for several years. So I had mentioned that one thing I want to talk to you about is a pilot block schedule, and it's a pilot because it was a trial. It was a practice, if you will. And we purposely set aside 6 days in November. We started our pilot block on November 15th, and we concluded it on Friday, November 22nd. That allowed us to basically go through 3 cycles of the A-B block. Basically, you go through an A day and a B day. That is one cycle. So we went through 3 cycles or 6 days of the A-B block schedule with the unit lunch. So basically all classes met on a 2-day rotating basis. Classes met every other day, in other words. They did not meet every day, but they met every other day. So what I have displayed on the screen for you is a kind of a graphic, if you will, of the pilot block schedule. So this is taking the concept of block scheduling, transposing our periods at the high school, our traditional schedule, into a block schedule. It wasn't necessarily that easy. It won't look like this when we move to a block schedule next year. This is taking a traditional schedule and plugging it into a block schedule. So you can see in a block schedule, you can see the 2 major columns in between the time and the length. You have an A day and you have a B day. You can see up top that the A day had 3 days set aside. We started on Friday, November 15th. I mentioned that. The next A day was November 19th and November 21st. The B days were the even numbered days, the 18th, the 20th, and the 22nd. What we did was we took the current periods that students have. For example, when I refer to Block 1A, I'm referring to the A day, the first class, which goes from 8:08 to 9:26. So that's Block 1A, or Period 1A, if you will. Period 1-2, under our current schedule, is our first period of the day. So on the first day we did this, on Friday, November 15th, students walked into the first period class as they normally would do. It wasn't a big change. The change was the period didn't end after 44 minutes. It kept going. And then they moved on to period 3-4. And period 3-4, currently under the traditional schedule, is our second period. Likewise, so they went to their second period class. So their A day at least began and resembled what their traditional schedule was, but the periods were much longer, as you can see, 78 minutes and 77 minutes. We have the block we have the first block and the last block. Last block, the time running from 1:06 to 2:24, if you refer to the column to the left, with 78 minutes. That's more for housekeeping items, if we have impromptu announcements, anything like that. So we added a minute to those periods. Let's go to B-Day. So when the students came back on Monday, November 18th, that was our second day of experiencing the block schedule, they began their day with period 5-6. Period 5-6 in the traditional schedule is period 3. That's our third period. So students began their day with a class they've never begun with. And then they went right into period 7-8 or 8-9. Those are the periods that meet during lunch. And then they, of course, had lunch. They had a study period, and then they ended the day with period 14-15. I would like to mention the study period exists because we took a 7-period day and we transposed it into an 8-period day. As you can see, there are 4 blocks in A day and there are 4 blocks in the B day. Currently, we have a 7-period day at the high school. So in the pilot block, and this will not be the case in a true block schedule, in the pilot block, every student in the school had a study hall during block 3B, 3B being the third block on B day, 11:44 to 1:01. I'm just using that terminology because we're going to need to get used to that, referring to that, what period are you going to? I'm going to block 2B. Oh, okay, so it's a B day and you're going to your second period class. I mean, that's just the terminology we'll ultimately be using. But the study hall was that 8th period that we had to fill an 8th period, and we created a study hall for that purpose. So let's talk a little bit about why block scheduling. Why are more and more schools adopting block scheduling? It's certainly not a new concept. It became popular in the 1980s and continued, high schools have continued to adopt it through the 90s and into the 21st century. So first, and a very important point, is the longer periods allow for greater in-depth instruction for the teachers. In other words, students gain deeper understanding of concepts through a block schedule. Likewise, students have varying learning styles, even in a 44-minute period. Or I should say, another way to say this would be, in spite of our current traditional, schedule, which was created at the turn of the 20th century. In spite of that, we do very well, and our teachers make every effort to vary their instructional approaches to meet the learning style of the students in their classroom. But it's not easy in a 44-minute period, and I'm not sure that it necessarily facilitates the in-depth learning that a block schedule would facilitate. So the block schedule allows teachers to integrate various teaching styles into the classroom. Students can focus on 4 classes per day as opposed to 7 or 8. So students, on any given day, they're going to have 4 classes, not 7 or 8 classes. Teachers benefit from more usable instructional time each day because less time is lost with the opening and the closing of class. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a few moments regarding instructional time and how the block schedule reorganizes that instructional time, because that's a very important point. There's less time spent in the hallway. Students at the high school are changing periods every 44 minutes. In a block schedule, they'll be changing every 77 minutes. They will spend less time in the hallway, and I'm going to go over that with you in a few moments. And the unit lunch allows for co-curricular activities to meet in addition to their after-school meetings, among other things. I can tell you at the beginning of the year, I get a lot of students coming to me saying, I want to have a lunch where I don't have any friends in lunch. And so in a block schedule, a unit lunch means everyone eats lunch together. And as I said, the schools that we visited all utilized a unit lunch. in the middle of the day. And likewise, I think it's archaic to have lunch dictate how a schedule should be organized. The academics should be first, the lunch should be second. Not to undermine or indicate that lunch is not important, because it is. Nourishment is very necessary, but the academics should be first and foremost over lunch. Continuing, I can tell you this. You will not find a 44-minute class that meets every day at a college or university. You won't find it. Any of us that have experienced college, university, we know that classes will meet maybe twice a week, Tuesday, Thursday, possibly Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I can remember having classes once a week that met for 3 hours, 3.5 hours. Many of us, I suspect, have experienced that. Students will become and need to become accustomed to having classes for much longer than 44 minutes. 44 minutes is very fragmented. So the first point there, longer classes meeting every day, they resemble the structure in place at most colleges and universities. Now, colleges go on a semester basis. Classes end generally in December. When students return in January, they have a whole new set of classes. That's not how it will function at this high school. And most high schools, the classes still will meet for the full year, but they will meet every other day for the full year. Continuing on, the block schedule creates greater, more positive personalization. Students get to know one another better. The teachers get to know their students better. The longer periods nurture stronger interpersonal relationships between staff and students and among students themselves. And as I said before, I often say that if someone living in the 19th century, 20th century were to come back in time and visit a high school, in terms of how the high school is structured, they wouldn't see many differences. Now, what happens in the classroom has changed dramatically. And in spite of the traditional schedule and the limitations on time, we do a very good job, but we can do even a better job in a block schedule with extended time. So let me continue on. So for the 2020-21 school year, the pilot block schedule, by no mistake, the scheduling committee, we met. The faculty was, and I should mention that every faculty member ultimately was part of the scheduling committee when we decided that we need to move forward. This is something that we need to do. Every faculty member was on one of several committees and made the decision. Here's what the pilot block schedule should look like, and here is what we want the schedule to look like in the 2021 school year. So this is not a top-down. This is a decision that the full faculty had input in, suggestions. Each class will meet every other day for the entire year. That's one thing we all agreed upon. Classes will be 77 or 78 minutes in length. That's something that came out of, there's a committee designed for, or the name of the committee is Organization and Use of Time. And that's the type of, the length of the period that they have recommended. Most students will have a study hall one time per cycle, randomly placed in one of the 8 blocks. So if we go back to the pilot block schedule, every student in the high school had a study hall, block 3 on B day. Next year, most students, not every student, most students will have a study hall somewhere in their either A day or B day. So there will be study halls that will be set up in every period. 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 1B, 2B, 3B, 4B. And many students will have a study hall. In a few moments, I'm going to show you some feedback that students gave us regarding the study hall in the pilot block schedule, and feedback given to us by teachers as well. We do know that the unit lunch will require some additional resources. Feeding everyone, feeding nearly 1,600 students is challenging in any way you look at it. It doesn't matter if it's 3 lunches or 1 lunch. So we will need some additional resources to facilitate that and to make that happen. So this is a graphic, if you will, of what we would like the schedule to look like when we move to block scheduling. To simplify the terminology, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, on A day, the first block will be 1A, and then the student would move on to 2A. And then we would all go to lunch, 3A and 4A. And then we move over to B day, and same thing, 1B, 2B, 3B, 4B. Simple terminology. And we would, obviously create school calendar. First day of school would be an A day, second day would be a B day, and we would continue through that. If we have a snow day, we pick up where we left off. So if let's say I were to take the 184 days and assign every day A, B, A, B, A, B, all the way to June 23rd. If we have a snow day, I'm going to have to redo that calendar because we pick up where we left off. That's what every school does. I mean, that was one of the questions we asked. What do you do when you miss a school day? Well, it's easy. You just, if the day before the snow day was a B day, then the day after the snow day, you're back to A day. Oh, okay, that makes sense. That was the answer we got from every school. So I did talk to you about, I mentioned to you that I did want to talk about the time because we are reorganizing time. In every school we visited, we asked them, so talk to us about the instructional time. Because if you look at this chart, if you look at the current schedule, and then if you look at the proposed AB block. So in the current schedule, if we take it daily per class, it's 44 minutes. Every period in our current schedule is 44 minutes. They meet every day. The pilot or the proposed block schedule, on average, now I already mentioned that the periods are 78 or 77 minutes, but on average, because they meet every other day, we arrive at the figure of 38.5. So if we move over to the next column, annual instructional time per class. And this is a question that is often raised in a block schedule. So you're telling us that there's a loss of instructional time. At least on the surface, it would appear that way. There's 7,920 minutes, all things being equal, if assuming you don't have schedule, modified schedules and so on, versus 6,930. However, one way to look at it, and this was explained to us by every school we visited, if you consider the fact that when a teacher opens a lesson, teachers open lessons with a do now, if you will. Some teachers call it a do now. Some teachers will call it an anticipatory set. Some will call it an introduction. Some will call it like a grabber, or something that will shift their thinking from social studies to math, from English to social studies, or so on. And then, at the end of a class, generally a teacher is going to take 5 minutes to close the lesson. They're going to possibly utilize an exit slip, a quick assessment. Did the students learn what I wanted them to learn? Or it's going to allow the teacher to know that, okay, next, when we open class, next day, we're going to, I'm going to need to reteach this based on the feedback I got from this, the question and answer through the closure. So that's 10 minutes every day. So if you take 10 minutes and multiply that by 90 days, that's 900 minutes. So basically, we are in a sense back to equal, if not saving time and making better use of instructional time. Instead of having 44 minutes that are fragmented, where every day a teacher opens a lesson, closes a lesson, that's 10 minutes, we have longer periods where teaching and learning is enhanced. Understanding is deeper among the students. It allows the teachers, and you'll see from the survey that we conducted, that this does hold true. And another question we asked other high schools was, can you cover the curriculum? Did you have to rewrite the curriculum in your courses? And the school said, absolutely not. We covered the same amount of material we covered in the traditional schedule. It's covered differently. Lesson plans have to be redesigned. Pacing guides have to be redesigned. If we look at daily across all classes, in other words, the number of minutes students spend in class, it's pretty much even. And if we look at annual across all classes, likewise, it's pretty much even. If we look at student passing time, the amount of time students spend in the hallway, right now it's 35 minutes. That's almost a full period. Our periods are 44 minutes. They spend 35 of that in the hallway, going in between class. Block schedule, 20 minutes. And then you can see lunch, from 25 minutes to 45 minutes. I believe our lunch, we're looking at currently a 46-minute lunch. So that is kind of an explanation of the time. Every school that has moved to a block schedule has addressed that, and they've found that the block schedule makes better use of time. To equate time with learning, again, is archaic. To think of the Carnegie unit, that is kind of old school thinking. The block schedule definitely is a new approach. So, taking all these things that I've discussed, I asked the teachers, the faculty, to develop questions that they would like both the faculty and the students to be asked. They did that, and we put these surveys together, and I'm going to go over with you the results, and many of these results will address some of the issues that I've talked about this evening. We surveyed the students in December, and the first question, so this is the students, first of all. I'm going to go over the student response, the student feedback, first of all. I had a positive experience during the pilot block schedule, and we have 87, I believe it's 87.8. It's a little fuzzy up there, but I'm pretty sure that's what that's saying. It's 87.8. Nearly 90% of the students said, yeah, I had a positive experience during the block schedule. A lot of schools had told us that the block schedule, one of the key elements, one of the impetus for moving to block scheduling is that it calms the day and it makes the day less stressful. So in addressing the social, emotional needs of our students, the block schedule definitely is going to be an excellent fit. And every school that was in the block has shared that with us. So we asked the students, I was less stressed during the block schedule. I'm going to jump up here because I'm having trouble seeing 80.3% said that they were less stressed. I should take this with me, right?
Yes.
And then to the right, I used the study hall to complete homework and other assignments.
Wow.
And I'm seeing 89.7% said, yeah, the study hall, I made good use of time in the study hall. I liked having my classes every other day. And I'm going to make sure you get a copy of this. 84.3% indicated that, yeah, I like my classes every other day. Block scheduling helped me to prioritize my time and focus on fewer classes at a time. 83.6. You know, one thing about a college and university, any of you have had sons or daughters that go to college, you have a lot of free time. Students may have a couple classes in the morning and the rest of the day they have free, quote unquote, they have to learn how to use that time at the college or university level. I'm going to continue with the surveys here. The unit lunch improved as the week went on. 72.7% of the students said, yeah, it got better. It was a big change, and I told the students that. I met with all the students prior to the pilot block. Every student in smaller groups, and I told the students, listen, this is a huge change, and you may walk into the cafeteria and find students are sitting in the seat that you normally sit in. You're going to have to, that's something you'll have to deal with. You and your friends may have to find somewhere else to sit. So it did take the time for students to get used to the unit lunch, but most of the students I spoke with said as the week went on, we kind of began to understand, oh, okay, we can maybe wait a little bit and get in line. The lines were longer, and I told them the lines to get food will be longer, but you have more time. So it's going to work, and ultimately it did work very well. We asked the students, I liked the unit lunch. 67% said, yeah, I did like the unit lunch. 33% did not. I didn't get into the reasons why, but we will, one thing next year, we'll have quiet places where students can go for lunch, because it's a lot of people in one place. And when we went to the other high schools and visited the other high schools, we purposely stayed there for the unit lunch. How they set up and so on, and it's an amazing thing to see at many of the high schools that we went to. Block scheduling will better prepare me for education beyond high school, example, college. And I believe 84.9%, nearly 85% of the students understand that, yeah, it's going to prepare me better for college. All right, so that's the feedback we received from the students. So now the faculty results. Faculty, same question I opened with was I had a positive experience during the block schedule. 96.1% said they did. I prefer the block schedule over the traditional schedule. 86.8 agreed, 13.2 disagreed.
Unless people are afraid to.
My students made good use of time during the study hall. A little different perception here. 69, if you remember, I think 89% of the students said, so the teachers of 67.7% said they did, but the majority, 70%, 3/4 of the staff said, yeah, they did. They made good use of time in the study hall. Content cover, and this is an important one, because this was one of the key questions that we had when we went to visit the schools. Content covered over the course of the block schedule was comparable to the content covered during the traditional week. So if we had a traditional schedule during those 6 days, the teachers say they would have covered the content, same amount of content. However, in a block, student understanding is going to be deeper. So that's positive. So the content's not sacrificed, in other words, in a block schedule. And that's an important piece. The classes were too long. And this is, again, the faculty that we surveyed. And 88% of the faculty said, no, we disagree. The classes were not too long. I found 77 minutes of instruction to be an appropriate length of time. And it shows that the questions are valid. It's, I believe I see 86.8%, 80, yeah, I believe that's what I see. And then I was able to get more in depth with the content. And that is, I believe, 78.9%, 80% of the teachers. So they were able to cover the same amount of content. And they were able to go in more depth with the content. And that's what a block schedule allows to happen. Same content, deeper student understanding. Most students were able to remain focused for the length of the period. And again, I'm seeing, I believe 80.3% said, yeah, my students were able to remain focused. An important one here, I changed my teaching strategies during the pilot block. 84.2% said yes. And it's important to know that we did prepare for this, and we've been preparing for this. Supervisors have been working with teachers. We had sessions where teachers actually were writing lesson plans for the pilot block. So they understood that, in a 77-minute period, lecturing for 77 minutes, while it may happen at a college or a university, should not happen at the high school level. The the teaching strategies will ultimately change, or at least, as I said before, our teachers are altering their teaching strategies in the 44-minute period. The 77 or 78-minute period is going to maximize that. It's going to be even better. I was able to offer more attention to individual students during the pilot block. I see that as 84.2%. So going back, it means that we have covered the content, we have deeper student understanding, and we're able to give more individual attention to students, all three. And the students are able to remain focused during this time period. I will need additional professional development regarding lesson planning during the block, among other things. And I think it's natural. I mean, I think, we have 56, almost 57% of the teachers agree that yes. And that makes sense. Professional development should be ongoing. But it also shows that I think we're doing a good job in preparing the teachers, as we have been, and we'll continue to do that. I felt the school climate was calmer during the pilot block. 77.6% said, yeah, it was calmer. I liked the unit lunch. 73.7% of the teachers liked the unit lunch. I liked having my classes every other day. Clearly, a large majority of the teachers did like that. It looks like 85.8%. I was able to successfully fill longer blocks with content and assessment, over 90%. And the pilot block allowed me to be more effective in my planning and assessment of student work. And once again, that's 86, almost 87% of the students. So it allows teachers to combine teaching and assessment. They should be one and the same. And then a block schedule allows them to do that. Project-based, performance-based assessments will be more. There'll be a greater degree of that in a block schedule. And as I said, allowing the teachers to combine teaching and assessment should be one and the same, or otherwise known as formative assessment. And then the last question was, the block schedule features less. I'm sorry. There's more. The block schedule features less repetition and therefore inspiring more enthusiasm. 84.2% agreed with that. I'm opposed to the unit lunch. I threw some questions in there just to kind of validate the survey, and 78.9% disagree. So they are, nearly 80% would say, no, we like the unit lunch. I am not prepared to enter into teaching in the block. Nearly 90% of the teachers disagreed with that. So what they're saying is, we are prepared. We're ready to go. This is the last one. I am in favor of implementing the block schedule for the 2020-21 school year. Nearly 90% of the teachers agreed with that statement. So I hope I've achieved my objectives for the evening, in that you have at least a beginning understanding of block scheduling. The key to understanding are longer periods that don't necessarily meet every day, and a transformation of how content is delivered to the students. The pilot block and what we'd like to do next year are very similar, purposely so. We were very methodical in designing the pilot block to resemble what we would like to do next year, validating the feedback that we received from both the faculty and the students. So I am open for any questions you may have. You bet. Okay.
Could you turn off the projector?
Turn on. There we go.
And the projector, you need
Turn
the
the projector
remote.
on? Gotcha. Is that? Okay. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Heisey. That was a great presentation.
Thank you, thank you.
I noticed that there were about 76 faculty responses. How many total faculty participated in the survey?
I had just over 80 faculty participated.
Okay, so almost all of them responded.
Yes,
That's
just
great. And
about.
same thing with the students. You had about 736 or so
Right.
responses. And how many, the whole school participated?
They did. They did. I'm thinking that many of the seniors did not. I mean, the whole school
Yeah,
was
'cause it
given an
doesn't affect
opportunity to participate. I believe many of the seniors did not respond or chose not to for whatever reason, but I get that every student in the school had an opportunity to respond, yes.
Okay.
Dave, how many faculty members are at the high school?
We have just over 110, I believe, faculty members, right. Now, some did not respond because they're non-instructional. So, some of the questions didn't pertain to them, counselors, child study team, and so on. So I'm considering a survey designed specifically for them, for the non-instructional staff.
In the research, thank you for that presentation.
my pleasure.
In the research that you conducted with the other schools about the block scheduling, did those schools find that grades and academic performance stayed the same, increased, or went down with the change from this everyday classes to AB?
Right. So the schools that we visited found that, and I'll predicate everything I say on the fact that block scheduling, the primary, many of the schools would go to block scheduling to reduce stress and to create a calmer day. But what they would find also would be increased student achievement as a result. And there's a great deal of research out there to support that, not just with the schools that we visited, but also research at the national level that shows that the block schedule, in some cases, academic achievement remains the same. In other cases, it is enhanced and improves. It depends on the type of block schedule as well. We considered what's referred to as a 4x4 block schedule, but we dismissed that pretty quickly. That's like the semesterized block, where classes meet on a semester basis. And research on the 4x4 was kind of mixed regarding student achievement. So because it addressed many of the social, emotional needs of students, academic achievement was enhanced.
I have a few questions,
Sure,
actually.
sure.
What happens with the classes like lab, like it's been a while since I've been at the high school, but where they had AM classes, for AP, thank you.
Right. So during the pilot block, the AP science labs, which traditionally begin in the morning at 7:41, and they move right into period 1-2. Or we do have some science labs that meet at the end of the day, so they start period 12, 13, and go into 14, and the students are dismissed before everyone else. So they have that extra time. During the pilot block, the AP science labs had the same amount of time that everyone else did. In other words, they were not given any extra time beyond the 77 or 78 minutes.
Okay. And because you do this, there's no need for that AM gym because you can fit 8 classes in the grouping.
That's right. I mean, there's a lot of research out there regarding the adolescent sleep patterns, and there's actually a pilot for the NJDOE where many high schools are being asked to start later because of the sleep patterns of young people. So one of the goals was to try to eliminate that AM class which starts at 7:19, because it is contrary to all the research out there regarding sleep patterns of young people.
Right, and I know they did it to be able to fit in other classes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I mentioned in the presentation and alluded to the study hall, and I said that many students will have a study hall. Some will not. The students that don't have a study hall would be those students that currently have that AM class. So the study hall could serve as basically a way to replace that AM class that we currently have. So our school day would start at 8:08.
And there will be no semester classes. Like, aren't there, like now, there's classes that start in September and end in December? And,
yeah, so, and they actually end at the end of January, at the end of the first semester. We will still have those.
Okay.
We'll have classes such as economics, which is a semester class, consumer finance, psychology. So those semester classes will meet for a semester. So they'll start in September. They'll go to the end of January, early February. I'm not quite sure what the end of the semester is. It's around that point. And they'll meet every other day for a semester.
Okay.
And they'll still be, 2.5 credits as they are now.
Okay. All right. That's it. I'm done.
Sure. That's all right.
Hi.
Hi there.
First, I just want to thank you for, I guess, the years of thoughtful research and planning that went into this. I think it's really exciting, and the rest of the committee. I was wondering if any of the other districts that you visited gave you any kind of concrete strategies for how to make this transition, because it's really a big philosophical shift for students.
It is. And I should start by saying I'm excited too. I'm very excited, and I think the teachers are as well. One of the things that the schools did tell us was if you can do a pilot block, do it, because it will put a lot of people at ease. Because there was a great deal of anxiety, and I think there still is among some people, because it is, as you said, it is a significant change. Change in a high school schedule is no easy task, because it's changing quite a few things. So the first thing would be to conduct a pilot block. The second thing would be to involve as many people as possible. In other words, everyone should be involved, and so every member of the faculty is on a committee related to this, related to block scheduling, and so their input, and they will be heard by the members of that committee. We will come together because the way I see it, and the other point these schools shared with us was pay very close attention to your first year of implementation, because in your second year you may make some changes. Don't stick with something if it may not be working. We may have to make some modifications to the block schedule. I'm not sure what they will be yet, but don't stop the committee structure once you implement. Keep that committee structure, take copious notes, and then reflect on, okay, how is the year going? What changes would we like to see for 2021, 2022? So those basically were was the advice, and then obviously that professional development. Every principal that I spoke with said that the teachers definitely need that professional development. Many of our teachers are already aware and are very skilled at instituting and utilizing a variety of teaching strategies. But doing that in a longer period will take some preparation. So that professional development is a key point, and that was something we heard from every school.
Thank you.
I have one more.
Mrs. Bauer.
Thank you for doing the survey of the faculty and the students, and I was wondering, was there a portion where they could offer suggestions now that they had been through it, and were some of those useful?
I can share that with you. They had open comments, which I can share with you. Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. And as you can expect, students and staff both were straightforward, which is great. That's what we need to have. That's the other thing is, you need to listen to everyone, every stakeholder, everyone involved in the block schedule. They may not get the answer they are looking for, but, listening to everyone is very important.
Karen Mitchell.
In a change like this, it's a process, I'm sure. What do you foresee as one of the biggest challenges? We see a lot of the positives for sure, and it sounds wonderful, but what challenges do you foresee with this, and what are our steps to minimize them as much as possible?
Right. I think it's a great. That's a great question. I think that one big challenge will be, and it's not academic, but it's something that I think about often, is the unit lunch. All right, but at the same time, I'm excited about the unit lunch. At the same time, so I'm looking forward to it, but at the same time, I'm anxious about it, about doing that each and every day. I am, we talked about time and the loss of time, but how time is reorganized, and that was a question we took to every school. But I think that's something that getting everyone used to teaching in a block, teaching in that in those 77 minutes. It's going to take teachers time to adapt to that. We did the pilot block for 6 days. I mean, hopefully next year we'll do this for 184 days. So 6 days, you can gauge, okay, I covered this amount of content, but for a whole semester, and we want to make sure that the content is properly covered, and at the same time, student understanding is a key as well. So we don't want to sacrifice. We don't want to just get through. I remember my first year of teaching, my supervisor said, "Dave, you're 4 chapters behind." And I said, "Oh my goodness." But then I thought to myself, what's more important, to cover some things really well or many things superficially? That was just a philosophical question I asked myself. So that's the professional development is going to be key. And the teachers are excited for it. I mean, you saw that they're ready to go with this, but not without the fact that they do, that they will need some professional development, and we can learn from teachers that have been teaching in the block for many, many years, yeah. And I think also on the student side, I talked about college and having free time. The students are going to need to be able to, and they'll learn this, students are very resilient, probably more resilient than us and adults. They will learn to budget their time and know that, okay, I have homework on A day, but tomorrow's B day. When should I get my A day homework done? Should I wait till the night of B day, or should I get it done right when that's going to be kind of like something students will need to adapt to, which they will. I'm confident that they will. Yeah.
Anybody else have questions?
Well, I definitely appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Heisey. It was very interesting.
Thank you.
It's very exciting that Dr. Heisey created that data set, and in that he has identified the strengths and created enthusiasm, and at the same time just areas that we really need to carefully focus on. As Mrs. Brody mentioned, the AP Science is something that we're taking a close look at, because that is a shift in time for that particular asset in the high school curriculum.
That would be one of the additional challenges that we'll need to consider. That's right.
Thank you. But one thing I have to say, that it would be great if you could fit everything within the school schedule, because sometimes it's difficult for students to get here in the morning for if they want to take an AP class, and because they don't have transportation here, because you have to get yourself here.
You do, that's right.
And then then they opt for the afternoon one,
yes,
which it might be easier to get home, but then they can't do extracurricular. So they have to miss out, and when you want them to try to be very well-rounded.
Yes.
And I have to say, I like the 46-minute lunch. That 23-minute lunch is it rushes. They're very rushed.
They are. I agree.
I'm there every day.
It's
like who's getting in line to get their lunch? I mean, and then they don't have time to just chill and just be with their friends.
And they need that.
So I think that's great.
Too. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you again, folks.
Thank you, Dr. Heisey.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, in accordance with the Scotch Plains Fanwood Public Schools Bylaws 0164-0165, the meeting will be open for 15 minutes for public comments. Maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers addressing the superintendent items, business functions, and other board business will be heard first. If time remains, speakers may address other matters. Please approach the podium if you want to address the board. Please state your name and the town in which you reside. Seeing no one, we'll move on to committee reports. Ms. Soriani.
Okay. The Curriculum Committee met this past Tuesday. We had 2 items on the agenda. The first, sticking with the high school, is changing of the high school calendar this spring for a week in April around the NJSLA high school testing schedule. And I'll explain. The administration is proposing 4 days of delayed openings, April 20th, 21st, 22nd, skipping the 23rd because it's Take Your Child to Work Day, so the test is not happening on that day, and the 24th. So 4 days out of the 5 that week, when the 11th and 12th graders would have delayed openings and come in at 9:38, so that 9th and 10th grade students can take the NJSLA test first thing in the morning. And the reason for this is now the test is spread out over 8 days. It takes staff resources and technology resources that take away from other students. So doing the delayed openings would allow the testing to happen over only those 4 days. And with the students with the upperclassmen having the delayed openings, the students who are taking the test would then have the whole faculty at their disposal to be able to supervise the test, to be able to troubleshoot, and they use the Chromebooks, most of the Chromebooks during this time, which then would minimize the time that the Chromebooks are taken away from others for instruction to only those 4 days. So there's no attendance issues because it would still be a 5-hour school day for those students that are coming in for delayed openings. And the committee was concerned about transportation was one thing, but the buses are going to run a second time that morning to pick up the students coming in for delayed openings, so there will be a second bus run to get those kids. And if there are any parents with transportation issues, or if there are sibling sets where parents would have to come in twice, we were told by Mr. Donahue that the students would be able to come in those instances and stay in the cafeteria while working on some schoolwork, if that was a problem for their parents. So it would just be, would allow for greater efficiency in the testing for a shorter amount of time. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, another way to say exactly the same thing is it reduces the amount of instructional disruption.
Yes.
Yep.
Right.
Okay. Student stress too.
And student stress. Yes.
Right.
Right. Yes. It provides for a calmer and more focused testing environment.
So the board is going to be asked to vote on the change to the 2020 calendar tonight to allow for delayed openings for those 4 days in April. Okay. The second thing that we talked about is a check-in about how the new writing workshop program is going. It's been extremely successful. And there was a review about the qualities of the new program, which we reported out about before, but just to remind everybody that there is a new writing workshop program in the district. It's genre focused, so kids are focusing on writing in different genres. They spend 4 to 6 weeks on each genre. The lessons, well, there is a mini lesson where the teacher will provide certain writing strategies. That is a very minimal piece of the period. That's only 10 to 12 minutes, where maybe the students are learning things like how to describe a setting or how to add dialogue to your writing. And then most of the time the children are spending actually writing for the majority of the period. They're able to work on multiple pieces at once. So that's a real shift with this program, because they would have spent time working on one piece for the whole genre, where now they have an opportunity to work on multiple pieces. They don't have to do it sequentially. They can go back and edit, while they learn new things, go back to a piece they were previously working on. So a real shift is that it allows for more autonomy from the students within this workshop model. And it was also pointed out to the committee that teachers are having consistent professional development about this new writing workshop program. They had professional development in September, October, and there's ongoing professional development where they're able to review the mini lesson structures, as well as certain Flex PD topics, like how to curate a classroom library, their peer visitations, and other such professional development areas. And the pilot team that helped develop this, approve the program and put it in motion, is still meeting bi-monthly with the content supervisors. Okay. Okay. So just to summarize, the program focuses more on writing as a process and being a writer than the end result. So it's more about the writer and less about the actual end result, less about the writing. And then they shared teacher feedback, and the teachers really, and Justin Fiore added in his perspective as a principal, that the students have shown that they're more excited about writing, the students have grown to see themselves as authors, they're more willing to revise and make changes to their work than in previous years because they have more autonomy, they can go back to something, they don't have to work as sequentially. The students have showed increased stamina and how long they can sit and write. And in addition, the teachers gave positive feedback that they feel more supported. There has been more excitement among the staff as well as the students. And definitely the content supervisors and administrators have provided very close support in rolling out this new workshop program. And what was really exciting was the committee got to see some examples of writing from K up through, I think, up through middle school. We saw examples of how the students were mapping their writing and how they were editing their writing and some end results. And it was really fun to see how the students were so excited about the writing process. Another thing I just wanted to share is that there will be parent workshops in January are the first ones, where parents will have an opportunity to hear more about the new writing workshop program. They will actually experience a mini lesson and learn how to support their students at home. So I think that the PTAs will give more information about those workshops, but the first one is January 8th at McGinn. The second one is January 15th at School 1. And then just to make sure that you're aware, there will also be continued professional development on the writing workshop program. And the intent is in 2020, now that things are underway, to broaden the focus to include more conferencing and small group work. That's just informational. It's very exciting what's going on.
That's great. Thank you, Ms. Ariani. Welcome. Are there any other committee reports? None? Okay. Then we'll move on to letters from the board. Letter 1LET is from Carolyn White, received on November 29th, 2019, questioning the residency of a Scotch Plains Fanwood High School student. Mrs. Rabimbus has responded. 2LET was a letter received dated December 6th, 2019, regarding the placement of new students from other countries, and that was referred to executive session. Superintendent's report. Dr. Mass.
Thank you. So I'd like the board to approve the following field trips. On January 11th, we have John Gillick is requesting to take the percussion section of the marching band to Wellmont Theater in Montclair to perform with the U2 cover band, Unforgettable Fire. The experience will give students insight into how a musical group conducts a rehearsal and give real-world concepts regarding performance, sound reinforcement, and stage lighting. On a date in January, our science teachers, including Matt Ritter, who's in the audience, request to take the 11th and 12th grade SPFHS students to Rutgers Anatomy Lab in Piscataway. This trip will supplement the content of our AP curriculum and give students a three-dimensional experience of the interconnectedness and complexity of the human body. They will observe and have the opportunity to touch preserved cadavers and human organs and participate in dissection of human anatomy. Wow. And on January 9th, Noelle Baxter is requesting to take the US 1 class to see Harriet at Watchung Cinemark Theater in Watchung. We've already had a group of students go, and it was so well received and such an excellent teaching tool. 2S, I would like the board to affirm the superintendent's decision in the 5 November HIP cases reported in executive session on November 21st.
You block them.
3S, review the draft of the 2020-2021 district calendar as was mentioned from the curriculum committee meeting report.
No.
for the board to approve the changes. And we have some out-of-district placements. Move that the Board of Education approves the 2 following revised out-of-district placements with revisions. We have a placement at the Phoenix Center, and we have a placement at ECLC. We have
Second ECLC, yeah.
a second, where do you see that?
ECLC.
A second one for ECLC, and finally one for the Academy 360 Lower School. I'd like the board to also move to accept the gifts to the school report, acknowledging receipt from Coles, Evergreen, McGinn, and SPFHS. The board also to approve the curriculum changes for the calendar for testing, and also for the board to approve a new holiday schedule that would change the 12-month employee calendar to include December 30th, 2019 as an additional holiday.
Okay. Can I have a motion for Dr. Mast?
So moved.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Mr.
I just have a quick
Murray?
question on the school calendar for 2021.
2020.
2021.
Well, we're doing
Number
down.
3S.
Yes.
So for that calendar, I don't know if, I mean, Easter falls, we either have the week before or the week after. I don't know if there's a preference or not a preference. I know a couple years ago we put out feelers into the community to kind of opine as far as which calendar we preferred and prefer. I don't know if there was a rationale behind having it at the end of March, so it's before Easter, because Easter's the week before, so it's like a March break versus an April break. I know there's been conversations around why doesn't the state just have one spring break for all of New Jersey. I just don't know if that was a thought around that, or if we're set on the last week of March for a reason.
I think part of the process was to look at what other nearby districts were doing. That gave us a base to start. We recognized that calendar included Good Friday, and it also included the start of Passover. So we felt like it was the choice to accommodate the different religious constituents who really have some sacred days at that time.
Okay.
Any other question or comment on these for the superintendent's report? Ms. Botsford.
I wonder if it might help just to clarify that we are talking about 2 different calendar actions here.
Yes.
One is for next year, 2021, and the other is the revision for
To the
this
current
year's
calendar.
current calendar.
Yes.
That's 6S.
Yes, 6X is for the current calendar, whereas 3S is for the one for next year.
Correct.
Thank you. And 7S. Other questions or comments? Okay, then we had a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Madam President, I think we should do a roll call since we're moving these all together.
Okay. Mrs. Saradaki, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Suriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. Bauer?
Yes.
Mrs. Boroff?
Yes.
Mrs. Brody?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Dr. Kolakowski?
Yes. Motion passes. Thank you, Dr. Mast. Would you continue with personnel agenda, please?
Yes. I'd like to ask the board to approve the superintendent's recommendations for the personnel report discussed in exec.
So moved.
Second. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Saradaki, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Could you please tell me who seconded?
I did.
Okay, thank you. I thought so. Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Mrs. Brody?
Yes.
Mrs. Bauer?
Yes.
Mrs. Boroff?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mrs. Suriani?
Yes.
Mrs. Williams? Yes. Dr. Kolakowski?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Mast. Thank you, Mrs. Saradaki. Okay. In accordance with Scotch Plains Fanwood Public Schools Bylaw 0164-0165, the meeting will be open for 15 minutes for public comment. Maximum of 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers addressing superintendent items, business functions, or other board business will be heard first. If time remains, speakers may address other matters. When you come to the podium, please state your name and the town in which you reside. Seeing no one, we'll move on to business functions. Mrs. Saradaki?
Yes, I'd like to group this if there's no objection.
Go right ahead.
1BUS, I'm asking for Board of Education to approve the superintendent's recommendations for staff training reimbursements on the report dated December 21st. 2BUS, I'm asking the board to approve various vendors for Park Middle School and Terrell Middle School's musical. These are all stipends that would be paid out of the proceeds from the ticket sales. It's Catherine Lewis for Park Middle School, co-director, Brianna McDonald at Terrell Middle School as the second director, and the choreographer for Park Middle School, Jill Cookingham. I'm asking the board to, in 3BUS, approve the disposal of a duplicating machine from 2006. The purchase cost was $4,245 back in 2006. The machine no longer works, and it's not worth trying to repair anymore. 4BUS, I'm asking for the board to approve disposal of 4 different assets due to age and maintenance issues, and these would be sold on govdeals.com as per this, who is covered by state contract. And these are 2 of our older trucks, 2005 and 2007 trucks that were used for grounds and maintenance. And then we have a water reel, which we can't find any purchase information on. It's quite old, and we have a John Deere chipper that was donated by the township, used when they bought a new one several years ago, and it has stopped working for us. So it can be repaired, or somebody can use it for spare parts. That's why we would consider selling it. 5BUS. These are costs that we have to have approved. These would be the maximum costs that we would reimburse a parent if they chose to have outside evaluations. And this is based primarily on the costs that we pay for evaluations. So 6BUS, I'm asking the board to approve the professional services proposal by Potter Architects in the estimated amount of $32,500 for a feasibility study of the high school courtyard cafeteria. This is to assist with the block scheduling. This will be useful space even if we do not move forward with block scheduling, so it's not space that would be wasted. And he is going to, this is work that he would have to do even if this is work that would have to be done even if we were to move forward. It's not additional work that he'd be doing. So his costs would be lower once we move forward, because this is all work. He will provide us with drawings, estimated costs of the work to be done. Drawings will include even furniture and things like that. So we originally talked about possible prefab construction, but we don't even know if that could be craned over the existing building into the courtyard. So it's a matter of researching. He'd have to research different possibilities. So I'll be reporting back to facilities and through facilities to the board on what he determines with that. 7BUS, I'd like the board to acknowledge receipt of the district school security and fire drill reports for the month of November 2019, 8 BUS, I'd like the board to acknowledge receipt of the disbursement listings for the month of November 2019. 9 BUS, I'd like the board to acknowledge receipt of the board secretary's report, the treasurer of school funds report, and the budget adjustments for the month of November 2019. 10 BUS, I'd like the board to approve the bill list for the period November 16th through December 13th in the amount of $3,429,536.48. 11 BUS, the board had approved us selling 1,020 Chromebooks that were past our life. And we received 6 bids. One of them was disqualified because the bidder came in and wanted us to evaluate the condition of every one of those computers, and then they would pay a price based on the condition of each computer. So that one, I did not talk to you about that, but I can disqualify that,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
And so the other 5 are listed here, and we would like the board to approve selling these computers at $31,772. And that's to RA Solutions. 12 BUS, I'm asking the board to approve the amendment to the ESEA and IDEA grants for 2019-20, and the amendment is just including the carry amount into the original grant. So the amount you see as carryover is remaining money from 2018-19, and we're required to have the board approve it every year when we add that money into our 2019-20 money. And that's it.
Okay. Do we have a motion? So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Brody. Thank you, Mr. Murray. Any question? Any comments? Discussion about business functions? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion carries. Are there any board policies? No? No policies today? No policies. Any new board business? Talk about any committees or? Nobody has new board business, okay. Other board business, any requests to attend workshops? Workshop reports. Mrs. Siriani?
This isn't related to a workshop, but I just wanted to fill everyone in on the Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation Committee. I was, nominated, voted a couple months ago to be the board representative. This is a community committee where both mayors are present, Dr. Mast attends, and several other key leaders in the community, a couple of religious leaders, to talk about issues of race in our community and how we can all come together. This was my first meeting, and I attended with Dr. Mast, and I just wanted to fill everyone in that I think this wasn't a typical meeting because a couple students from the high school, 3 students, and 1 parent from the community came to reflect on incidents over the last couple years at the high school and in the school district, and things give us some ideas of what we can do and conversations that can be had to improve our climate in regard to race in our school district. So they gave some feedback. They talked about some additional training for staff, some additional conversations for students. They talked about opening this up at a middle school level so we could start earlier with these difficult conversations and have everyone respect, people of all races within our school district. So we talked about how we might utilize the Black Student Union and in regards to having those conversations. We talked about things that had been done in the past, such as the Day of Diversity, different mentorships that have occurred,
And it was a very preliminary discussion. There was also a religious leader, a leader of a youth group who does very similar work in Summit, who came to weigh in on, things we might consider doing. So I know Dr. Mast is working very closely with some of the students to consider what would be the best ways to have these conversations and to help just improve school climate in regards to race. So again, it was very preliminary, and planning is going to be ongoing, and I think our hope is to implement some programming sooner than later. But do you have anything to add to that?
I think just the work that we're doing as a district, we recognize that it's a journey. It's not just having an event. I know that we have some of our students at the high school are very anxious to have a day, and we honor that. We think that's important, but a day is just one of the stones on the path of ongoing conversations, just for including everyone. So, but this particular meeting did include some students who were interested in attending, as well as Dr. Dumaresque, one of the social studies teachers from the middle school level, and people are really anxious to talk about topics around race that are concerning to us as a district and as a community.
Mm-hmm. Any questions? So there's another meeting in January. I'll continue to keep you updated.
Well, thank you for attending and bringing this to our attention, and same for you, Dr. Mass. Thank you for being there with Ms. Soriani and seeing this unfold.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate it. Any other reports?
I have a report from the Garden State Coalition of Schools, which met yesterday, and it was a very interesting meeting. We had a special guest who is the deputy chief, retired from the Fort Lee Police Department, Patrick Kissane. He's the executive director of the New Jersey SROs and the New Jersey Center for School Safety. So there was a lot of opportunity, very beneficial conversations and primarily Q&A from superintendents and board members asking him about various things. And he did talk about one of the things he spoke about were laws that are being enacted that are really not, you can't really implement them. Alyssa's law was an example he was using, that there's no really way to implement that law and meet the law's requirements. He was talking about several other different laws currently, talking about the roles of SROs now and in the future. And he did say there are a lot of companies who tell you you've met Alyssa's law, but you haven't. So in any case, and talked about the 21st century policing model, just a number of things that were really very interesting, including talking about the social emotional effects on children of all the drills that are going on in schools. So there was a whole discussion about that. And he also, they were discussing a new law that Tom Kean is introducing, and has a Democratic co-sponsor, so they're pretty sure it's going to pass, requiring for sure all buses that carry special ed students to have cameras, GPSs, and no phones, and possibly all buses. So they expect that to pass. One of the things they did is reviewed what things are probably passing in the lame duck, what are already on the governor's desk, and what they expect after the reorganization in January. They have to reintroduce any bills that haven't passed. So it was an update on a number of different things. So it was a really good meeting, and I have to say our executive director she attends countless meetings advocating on our behalf for all these different things. So, and I'm glad you all are all receiving the email, so you have some update as well.
Well, thank you for attending, Mrs. Bauer, and thanks for sharing that with us tonight. Anyone else? Well, what about screenagers on Monday night? Despite the weather, there was a great crowd at the high school. The EEF had the viewing of the 69 or 70-minute movie about the Screenagers Part 2. I was there. Dr. Master were there. I don't know who else was anywhere in the audience, but it was very interesting. It continued on with, staying away from electronics and spending more face-to-face time and the kinds of anxieties that it can wreak onto younger children because they always want to be on it and, what everybody else is doing and, spending more in-person time. And I just felt like I was happy that many people came out to see it.
Yes.
And despite the weather.
Yes. Yeah, that was the second meeting that we had that was around social media. The first was with the police chiefs, and then following up with the screenagers, which really focused on the social emotional aspect of screen time and kids, and even how it impacts the relationship with students or children with their parents. That tension became, that possible tension was quite palpable through the film. So,
But we had both events because having the police chiefs from both Fanwood and Scotch Plains the week before, as well as Dr. Drew Marask and several other members of the police from different towns around, and yourself, Dr. Mast, and it was just Dr. Heisey was there as well, and Mrs. Robimbus, and everybody spoke from their angle about, not jumping on the bandwagon and the hysteria of rumors, and even if there is a bit of truth, and not forwarding in that to everyone and getting everybody up in a tiz if there's anything to worry about. If there is something of concern, to please tell the police. Alert someone, don't share it amongst yourselves, go to the source to take care of it. And I thought that was nice that everybody took the time to attend that. That was also pretty well attended as well.
there's one more piece that I would like to highlight. How many people noticed the birds as they left this area going into Evergreen? Matt has done some work with the birds. Would you like to just give a preview of what's to come?
That's all right, if you wouldn't mind. My name's Matt Ritter. I'm a bio teacher. I teach a zoology course. Last year I actually met Barbara Prestridge at a board meeting, and we got together for a very brief project. We called it Arthropods. They were hanging up here very briefly, but this year we got to talking again, and we created this project called On the Wings of Paradise. It was a really great experience. We were actually able to utilize the time during the block pilot at the high school to develop our models. The students were working in my second unit on animal phylogenetics and cladistics, so it was a unit on classification and evolution. So we were able to kind of discuss natural selection, sexual selection through female mate choice and male-male competition, and how that may impact on bird speciation. So the students had been observing numerous different types of birds. Some of the work through Ed Scholes and Tim Lehman, who are pretty famous now. If you've gotten Disney Plus and gone on to the National Geographic little portion there, their documentary is actually featured there. It's one of the few animal videos that are up for watching now, but I highly recommend it. So they watched different bird dances, different bird behavior, started working on classifying them, and then they got the opportunity to do that. So when you walk into the lobby, you're going to see a bunch of their creations. They have taken a lot of time and a lot of effort into classifying those organisms in our field guide of On the Wings of Paradise, and that's located out in the lobby next to the the iPad that has been displaying the bird calls, which during when everyone was coming in, I was trying to play Guess the Bird. That was a fun thing. But my students have interviews. Raider News came by, thanks to Mr. Moscow for lending us some of his students, and they have their insights, and we're currently compiling that. I'd also like to thank John Alves for hooking us up with the iPad, and Dr. Mass for coming by with Deetra Spence to actually come by for the gallery walk earlier in November. So, and my supervisor, Mrs. Freya, for supporting me. But thank you, and if you have any questions about the project, please feel free to reach out. My students love talking about it. I love talking about it. I'm trying to limit myself 2-3 minutes. I can go on for the rest of the night talking about it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
It
Mr.
looks
Ritter.
really beautiful.
It looks great.
It brings on a whole different meeting.
I was just curious if some of these good news things and links are on our website.
Some of them are, but I will check to see that all of them are or will be. Thank you.
Can I just say one thing? About, I think when the arts integration piece came about this year, it was really exciting, and I was trying to think in my head, it went, how would this concept be operationalized? And I think this is such a beautiful example. So I was really glad to see how the science and the art would come together and how the students would benefit from it. So it's great.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. Any other board business besides all that? Because that was quite a bit.
Are we in the good of the order yet, or no?
No, not yet.
Oh.
Oh, that's why I'm recording this. Oh, no, we were still in other board business. Workshop reports? Yeah. Sorry. Because we still have to do the approval of the minutes.
I know.
Skip ahead a little bit.
The approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion for November 14th, open agenda, 14th for the executive session, 21st regular board meeting executive session, and November 21st regular board meeting?
So moved.
Second. Thank you,
That
Mr.
was
Murray. Thank you,
everybody.
Ms. Soriani. Any question, discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. And then in accordance with Scotch Plains Fanwood Public Schools Bylaw 0164-0165, the meeting will be open for 15 minutes for public comment, maximum 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers addressing superintendent items, business functions, and other board business will be heard first. If time remains, speakers may address other matters. When you approach the podium, please state your name and the town in which you reside. Seeing no one. Now, for the good of the order, Mrs. Boroff.
So I think that, well, first of all, happy holidays, and
happy holidays.
I hope everyone has a fabulous break. But listening to tonight's conversation and Stephanie's report, it really sort of resonated with me, the collaborations going on within the district among the community, and I commend the efforts of everyone really in town and leadership in town for really listening to our community and figuring out ways to work together and really improve the quality of the education for the students and for the overall environment. And then sort of piggybacking off of the whole arts and integration, I can't help but notice the artwork behind you and the theme of art playing a role in education and children really embracing themselves. And so I love that, and I just really wanted to point that out and all the colorfulness, and I think that it was just really nice feedback to hear tonight, to really see that we're making strides and listening and working together.
Thank you, Mrs. Boroff. Anyone else? Okay, well, I echo that. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Regina, go ahead.
If I may piggyback on that somewhat as well, I was very privileged to have been at McGinn, I think it was a week ago. Students from the high school's Black Student Union were reading children's stories to the elementary students, and the theme was about one's concept of beauty. And the secret, of course, was that beauty lies within. and not without, and is based on what we do and not what we see. So I'm just seeing a connection here with children becoming more like themselves. And I just want to thank the students from the Black Student Union for having joined us at the elementary school.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Well, stay safe over the holidays. Enjoy your time off. We disperse here today. We will have our reorganization meeting on Thursday, January 2nd at 7:30. We will convene in this room. No executive session prior to our meeting in public, but we will be meeting after the reorg for a little bit of training with, is that okay?
Sure.
Doug. So be prepared to stay a little bit after the reorg to take care of that, because we haven't done it yet this year. And if there's no other comments, may I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? I didn't think so. All those in favor? Aye. Nobody's going to oppose that? Motion carries. Good night, everyone.